Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is part 4 in a 5-part global launch quick start guide for DC Dark Legion. In this part of the guide, we're going to be talking everything you need to know about the Batcave as well as the world map. So if you're wondering how to upgrade your war room, how to use the Armory, how to use the research lab, how to handle general base productivity, how the construction queue works, and how level sync works, this video is for you. Before we get into those things, I do want to spend a moment at the beginning of this video to talk about 3v3 strategic challenge. Now, I did spend a little bit of time talking about that towards the end of my previous video, but I thought I would go into a little bit more detail or talk a little bit more about it here. I feel like I was kind of rushing through things with the, initial impressions because the game mode had just launched. Having had an opportunity to play the game mode for a little while, I do think it is much better than initially thought, and it's a nice little way to earn a few extra resources for your account. This is definitely not the most difficult game mode. It's definitely not the most strategic, but I do think there's a little bit of strategy to this, especially if you're trying to climb the boards and get to the the strategist tier, which I was actually able to do just before I started recording this video. You can see that I have obtained the frame, which the 3v3 frame is only available for 30 days, which this event is typically going to be a 7-day event at the beginning of each month, and then it will reset the beginning of the next month. So it's nice to get that frame kind of in those intervening weeks where you're not able to play the mode, and you can kind of show off the fact that you were able to obtain it. I definitely don't think I'm going to be able to push much further than I am now. I have seen that you tend to lose a few ranks whenever you go to sleep. People wake up and kind of knock you down, especially where I'm at. I'm at about 2.5 million power between my 3 teams, and that's definitely enough to kind of win some matches, but it's not going to be enough to withstand all the whales who can just kind of bully you around. So just wanted to point out a couple of things. I mean, the first thing you can see it on the screen here is you're going to be getting at certain milestones. So when you go to a new rung on the ladder, you're going to be able to get 5 world anvil fragments. And I think I've been able to do this twice now. So again, it's not insignificant rewards for the amount of time invested. It doesn't take a lot to do your attempts on this game mode. So now let's jump into some of the items that I want to discuss related to your war room in the Batcave. Okay, so if you've been following along with this guide over the last few days or the last few weeks, you have picked a server to play on, you've started obtaining a few champions, you've started powering those champions up, and you've probably got a general sense for how the Batcave works. But in general, the Batcave is sort of your engine for how you're going to succeed in the future as you play this game. So you're kind of building up a baseline of resources that you're going to be able to obtain daily when you log in, and the more you invest in your Batcave, the better your account is going to be in the long run. And the most important thing you can do is upgrade your war room. Some of the other rooms in the Batcave, they're a little bit more forgiving. You can afford to have a little bit of time elapsed between one upgrade completing and starting the next one. But because at the later stages of upgrading your war room, it takes so long in between upgrades, the more time that it takes between one upgrade completing and you starting the next one, you want to minimize that as much as you can. Now, one resource that you're going to have available to you is a infographic that I put together a few weeks ago. And this infographic, I'll probably do an update on the graphical representation of this at some point in the future. But in the meantime, you can get a general idea for kind of what's required. And that's really the most important thing here. So if you take a look, you can see that I've listed out the first 30 war room levels. I've listed out the rooms required to upgrade to the next war room level. I've listed out the reputation required, and we'll talk a little bit about reputation when we go into the world map as well. And then I've listed out the amount of time that it takes to upgrade to that war room. Now, the first 10 or so war room levels are going to be quite simple. I I'm pretty positive that you can get to War Room level 8 in the first day that you're playing the game, and probably even faster than that, just a few hours. You will notice that at some point, unless you spend a significant amount of money on drones, that it's going to start getting progressively harder, but you can run through those first few pretty quickly. After that, it's going to be paramount that you understand which rooms to upgrade first, so that whenever your War Room upgrade finishes, you'll be pretty much ready for the next one. So definitely utilize this guide, make sure that you have it handy, and you can download this infographic from my Discord server, link in the description for that. You can also find this infographic on the Discord server for the game, or on Reddit or my Twitter feed. So I mentioned reputation when we were looking at the War Room upgrade infographic that I put together. And I think that's a good segue to the next topic that I want to talk about, which is the world map. So a lot of these things are sort of interlaced or interwoven. And the way they've set this game up, in order to upgrade your War Room, you have to progress within the main story or the main missions for the game. So if we jump into the world map, and you can see that I've progressed as far as I can, but when a War Room upgrade completes, it's going to unlock the next portion of the story. You'll be able to click into this portrait frame and you'll be able to complete a few missions. Typically the setup, especially later on, is that you'll have one set of missions where there's a lot of talking going on and you're running through the map, you're fighting a few different bosses, and when that completes, like when the main story completes, there'll be a couple of additional, I guess, missions that pop up, and one of those is going to be just a series of like 10 to 15 or more. I forget exactly how many it is, but you'll be fighting just back-to-back battles, and at the end of that set of battles, you're going to obtain a number of resources. So two different ways you're going to obtain some of the reputation that you're going to need. The third way to get some of that reputation is going to be fighting these little mini boss fights, the dark version of each character in the game. I'm still struggling with this dead shot. I could probably attempt it again, but I'll save you the pain of watching me lose that one again right now. But you can earn some reputation and some other rewards for completing those battles. And then the last thing, I don't have any of them up right now, but you'll have some additional battles that will pop up every so often, and mine refreshes in about a little over an hour. But you'll be able to complete some of these crisis response items to obtain some additional reputation and other rewards as well for your account. They're actually quite useful for getting those biostimulators that you're going to need to upgrade characters, and also you get some chips and some other items too. So really 4 different ways that you can obtain some of the reputation you're going to need to upgrade to your next War Room level, and then a lot of the other resources that you need for your account. Primarily the thing that you kind of have to have from the world map is going to be that reputation. Now, there's one or two last things that we can talk about here. And the first one is going to be this little expedition. Expeditions aren't the greatest thing in the world. They've been trying to do a few different iterations of the expedition to make it more worthwhile for you. You know, right now, the way it's set up is if you dispatch one of your squads for the expedition, there's an 8-hour duration, and I believe at certain intervals you're able to recall your team and you can obtain whatever rewards that you had acquired up to that point. The unfortunate thing is you don't really get a lot of rewards from the expeditions. I know that they've added where you can get some gems or some ACDC shards, so it's not a complete waste of time. You know, basically the way they've said that this mode should work is once you've finished all of your crisis response, like if you're about to log off of the game and you have nothing else that you could do, then you would just go ahead and do some of these expeditions. So like before you go to bed or before you go to work, when you know you're not going to be able to log in for several hours, you just hit these expeditions and maybe you'll have some gems or some ACDC shards to come back to. But definitely something to at least keep in mind. And then the last thing is these infiltration attempts. So once you get into this kind of, I guess, mini map, which is very similar to kind of the graphical display of Guardian Challenge, you can attack people who are also going on expeditions or crisis response. So kind of cool the way they've set this up. But you can pick someone, and I hate to pick on J Wolf, but we'll do an infiltration really quick. You can see that you have the ability to obtain a chest, and they have different size chests based on the difficulty, or like the account power of the person you're attacking. So they kind of disincentivized attacking lower level accounts because you may not even get a hero chest. You also do get some other resources, a very small amount of those as well. But we'll do this infiltration. And this is actually very similar to kind of how the 3v3 strategic challenge is going to look, because it's basing kind of like your ability to win that match off of your ship power for like whatever ship you use to go on that expedition, as well as the account or the attack power of your champions. So we will, I mean, it doesn't matter. We'll just go ahead and do this fight. You can see it showing the power of our ships. And then there's no way for you to actually control your champions here. You can just, if you want to auto sim it, or you can 2x, want to 2x it, and we'll speed up here. I do think it's nice to at least get a graphical representation of the fight, because some of these more strategic modes that they have for the game, you don't even get this. So like, I think I want to say Checkmate Crisis, you just pick the team that you want to use, and then it's just kind of a pen and paper situation rather than being able to kind of see what's going on. So you can see we did get 4,000 chips, and that's not too bad for these. I mean, it's just an extra resource, an extra way for you to play the game. And that's pretty much it for the world map. I mean, it's a pretty nice little area of the game, and it's important to make sure that you're not letting this slip away, or like you want to make sure that as you grow your account power, that you're trying these dark missions, and that you're trying to clear this world map off as much as you can, because it is going to help you progress to the next level. Last couple of things I'll say about the world map just quickly is you can do some toggles. So you can toggle to see which leagues in your server are controlling each city. So this is sort of a Guardian Challenge type thing, but kind of nice to get that graphical representation of who is kind of running the server from a league perspective. And then you just have a few other ways that you can kind of view everything. You can see like where all the crisis response is. So if you don't like the other ways that these things are displayed, you can see that here. And then you can also select only cities with available tasks, which is nice for kind of filtering through things. You can click on that little fist to be able to see the world map. And this is helpful for whenever you're trying to select your crisis response, because each crisis response is going to show up like this, where you can basically follow it to the city and then do your dispatch. So pretty nice little function there. So the next thing I want to talk about is level sync. And level sync is a very important part of the game that some people I notice don't really pay a lot of attention to. The first thing that I want to point out is you going into your, I guess, main champion screen. You can see that someone is in level sync by basically their level is going to be this sort of cyan, light blue, neon blue color. That means that they are in your level sync. So your first 5 characters, these are kind of your ride or die, like your main characters that you're running through the game. And I've talked about this before, but I think after level 300, you can no longer reset a character. So you're kind of stuck with those. But the nice thing is that this level sync feature gives you the ability to continue using the rest of your roster while you're growing that top 5. It's very nice to have. You want to make sure that you are putting your best possible champions into your level sync, and you want to make sure that you're upgrading your training simulator, or excuse me, your training nexus as much as possible, because the more the higher your level of your training nexus, the more of these level sync slots that you're going to unlock. So let's jump back over, and if we look into our actual training nexus, you can see the level sync feature here, and you simply are going to scroll down until you find an open level sync slot. I do have one available, and I'm actually leaving that open for whenever Constantine comes into the bleed, because I'm hoping to immediately throw him in there, or if I unlock an additional level sync slot at some point down the road. But you can see basically when you open that plus sign, you can select one of these champions, and you can add them into your level sync slot. So, and then I guess the other thing that you may want to do is you can click on a champion and you can reset them to 0 or whatever level they were before you put them in the level sync, which should be 0 if you're min-maxing your account, or level 1, I guess. But if you do remove someone from level sync, it does start a 1-hour timer and you're unable to add any additional character into that level sync slot. So think about that before you're trying to adjust your account. Maybe if you feel like that you need to make some changes to your level sync, do it at a time where you're not going to pick the game back up for a little while if you're needing to do something. We'll cancel that. That's the gist of level sync. The next thing that I want to talk about is the Armory. So Armory is a very important portion of the Batcave. It's something that you're going to struggle to keep up with the upgrades to your Armory because how difficult it is to craft gear and then deconstruct that gear to get the cubes needed to upgrade the Armory. Well, we can jump into the Armory really quick. You can see that I'm at level 28 Armory, so I finally unlocked the ability to craft basically 100% guarantee to get some sort of mythic gear for your Guardians and your Warriors, which is really, really nice. It's definitely going to ramp my my account up significantly from here. But the issue now is it's just going to take, a lot more time for me to do the next upgrade, which is going to allow me to start working on some of those DPS characters and getting their mythic gear going. But I need 45,000 cubes, and maybe this is a good infographic for me to work on next, but the amount of cubes that you get back for each type of gear. But you can see, like, in order to deconstruct gear, you're going to come to this screen, you'll click on whichever gear pieces that you're wanting to deconstruct. So you can see epic gear is 50 building blocks and legendary is 200. We can figure out some of the other ones later, but you just hit this deconstruct button and it will give you those building blocks. The first few levels of the Armory are pretty easy to get through, and you definitely want to get through those as quickly as you can early on in the game, because just getting gear onto your characters in general is going to be a bit of a task. And once you do that, it's definitely going to help you push forward to some of those more difficult story mode quests and training simulator battles and things like that. So definitely don't discount the power of the impact your Armory is going to have on your account. And make sure that at least every few days you're trying to use some of your anti-crime network sims to get a few extra alloys so that you can craft some gear and just do this cycle of crafting, deconstructing, upgrading, and keep your Armory up to date. The next room that is vitally important for your success in this game is going to be the research lab. You can see that I have my research lab upgraded to the level of my war room, and I've been trying to do that because there is a bit of a pattern to the war room upgrades. If we jump back over to the war room upgrade costs, you can see that once you hit, I think it's level 18, it's going to be research lab, Wayne Steel, Wayne Chip, and then training nexus. So it's going to repeat that pattern for quite a few war room levels. And so those are going to be the 4 that if you can't upgrade anything else, you want to make sure that you're keeping all of those 4 up to the level of your war room. So just a little bit of a tip there once you get some of the higher war room levels. But let's take a look at the research lab. So your research lab is broken up into 2 different queues. You have your construction and then you have your combat. Now you're not going to have access to the combat portion of the research lab when you first start out. It is something that you'll have to work towards. So you definitely want to jump into your construction queue to start out with and start trying to push through some of the earlier important milestones for your research. But at some point you want to jump into that combat and start pushing some of that, because the combat piece is going to be the most important thing to move your account forward, even over some of the source production. So we can jump into construction queue and I can show you some of the things that you definitely want to focus on to start out with. Go back to the top. So, you want to get that new squad as quickly as possible. This is incredibly important. It will allow you to have that second squad that you can, do league fights with. You can do your crisis response, really everything in the game. There are 3 total squad slots that you're able to get for free. And then the 4th one is a paid battle pass to have it. So unlock this one as quickly as you can. And basically what you'll do in order to get to the next big upgrade is you'll just unlock one each of these. So one of the after action report, one of biological extraction. When you get those, it opens this next rung, and then you do one each of those. It's going to get you to this construction efficiencies, which just helps speed up all the time of construction for your account. And then you'll do that again until you get to data processing. That's going to help with your research speed. And then you'll finally get to your 3rd squad slot. And that's kind of like you want to race to get here. So you don't want to worry about trying to max out, 5 out of 5 on every single thing to get here. You just get here as quickly as you can so that you can research this. Chip and power core are pretty important. I definitely need to circle back and do these power cores at some point. Let's see how much they are. We'll just go ahead and do one of those for now. But warehouse expansion, you get to drone AI upgrade, which is nice. But the next kind of milestone that you really want to hit is the Intel network upgrade, which is going to increase your Intel point cap, and it's going to make it a lot easier. Like if you don't have time to log on to the game for several hours, if that Intel point cap gets reached, you're definitely going to hit an inefficiency where you're letting resources go to waste. So having these extra Intel points makes it a lot easier to jump in. Basically, you can allow a lot more time to elapse before you start losing resources. Personally, I think this is the point where you kind of are able to stop focusing on your construction queue altogether so that you can really push your combat. And that's where I have landed on my account. So I have really been pushing the combat research as much as I can. We can go up here and take a look. So you're definitely going to get some things like physical penetration that you can focus on. One thing that's maybe worth pointing out here is, because some people don't realize this, these checkpoints that you're going to be hitting as you try to get down to some of the more important upgrades they're based on the type of champion. So like, for here, like this one is for the warrior, you have one for your guardians, and so on and so forth as you go through here. So like if you open into it and you see like attack power increased by 5%, you're not increasing the attack of all of your champions by 5%. It's just that type of character. So definitely worth pointing out. Same thing for the HP. But for this one, you're trying to get, so obviously the HP boost is pretty important here, but like the first major milestone, it's going to be difficult to get here. You get this attack percentage boost, which does apply to all of your champions, and it's pretty nice. It's a 10% boost, and I think when you hit that, like that's when you really start feeling your account ramp up a decent amount. And I am trying to get the chips needed to do the research for physical penetration, which is, I think, going to help my account push to the next level as well. Obviously got to get another 600,000 chips to be able to do that. That's pretty much it for Research Lab. I mean, there's probably a lot more that we could talk about here, but I just want to give you a good sense for what you should be focusing on and like what are some of the checkpoints that you want to hit. Pretty much everything in combat and the combat research is going to be important for you at some point down the road. When you're going to get to some breakpoints where the next big upgrade is going to cost just so many chips that it'll take you a long time to get there. And so it might actually be smart to kind of jump back and take care of some of these items along the way. And that's definitely a point where I'm about to hit. Once I get this next big one, I'm going to go back and get some of these other items back here. Like this would really help my Superman to finish this one out, for example. Okay, so the next thing, and this is more of, I don't want to say philosophical, this is just more of a basic game mechanic discussion, but the construction queue. So when you first start out with a game, before you've spent any money on it, or before you've really made any progress on the account, you're given one construction queue. So you can essentially have your war room going at all times. Like that doesn't count towards your construction queue. All the other productive buildings in your base are going to be tied to this construction queue, and you're going to be given one construction queue for free, and then you have the ability to purchase a second construction queue. Now, you've probably heard this several times in some of my videos. I never recommend to anyone to spend, especially if you don't have the money for it. I do think there are a few things in these games that are sometimes needed, and unfortunately I would argue that the second construction queue is needed for anyone who really wants to progress in this game quickly. And the great thing is it's a permanent upgrade for your account, and it only costs $2 US. So if there's one thing that I would recommend that people buy if they're able to, it's definitely this permanent second construction queue for $2. It's not really a big amount. I wish they just included it without you having to pay, or maybe you could pay with gems. I think maybe that would be a nice addition, you know, making it where you could buy it with gems. But definitely this is something that I would highly recommend that you get if you're able to, because it's just going to double your productivity in your base. I mean, it really does make it so much easier for you to keep your Batcave up and running. And the last thing that I want to talk about today is your general base productivity. So your productive rooms, your room appointments, your room power. So when I say productive rooms, what I'm saying is there's a few different ones in here. So there you have the library, you have the living quarters, the med bay, the lounge, and the power plant. So these are kind of, they're rooms that are going to make your base run more efficiently, which means that you're going to get more resources from all the other I guess the resource rooms. So your training nexus, your biolab, drone, Wayne steel, and Wayne chips. All those rooms are going to give you more resources if you make sure that your base productivity is as high as you can get it. So you can see that I was doing a little bit of research on my power plants, and I'm just trying to get those both caught up to my war room, because if I can do that, I'm hoping to get my power status up to the highest thing you can get. Now I've got to get those power cores in the research lab taken care of as well. But once I get these both of these power rooms kind of where they need to be, it's going to take my power efficiency for the base from 20% to 30%. Now, when you're first starting out with an account, especially if you don't get that second construction queue, you're going to have to decide what you want to prioritize as you're building your base up. For me personally, I didn't spend a lot of time upgrading all of these productive I guess we say, you know, kind of the productivity rooms, because I wanted to make sure that I kept up with my war room upgrades. But it really is kind of a balancing act, because you do have to kind of circle back and take care of some of these rooms as you go. What you will notice is, for example, I would say when you get closer to war room 8, 9, 10, if you haven't been focusing on these productive rooms, definitely go back and see what the cost is to upgrade them a little bit higher. And maybe you can go through and get all of those productive rooms up to maybe level 6, level 7, and then you can circle back and start working on everything else. But you always, even if some of the other things are lagging behind a little bit, you want to make sure you're bringing everything up to the extent possible, because it does matter. Now we can go in and we can see our room status, and I actually want to segue here to another infographic that we've put together, which is a base room appointment guide. And you can see here, now there have been a few additional bleed mythics that have come out since this room appointment guide was put together. So you're probably going to have a few characters in your account that would be able to slot into some of these as well. But the idea is to give you a list of mythics that you can put in that are going to give you 30% room efficiency each, so that you can get all of your rooms to either 60% or 30%, depending on whether the room allows 1 or 2 mythics or 1 or 2 characters to go into it. Now, when you first start your account, you're going to be using a bunch of your legendary characters to fill these rooms, and they're going to be fairly inefficient. You're going to get a bunch of characters who can only do 10 or 15%, maybe 20% efficiency each. And you're just going to have to kind of basically reference this guide as you get mythics, and then you can throw them into your room appointments so that eventually you'll get to a point where you're at 60% on everything. And you can actually reference your room status over here on the left hand side of the screen. You can see all of the appointments that you've made so far, and you can check, who's in each room and make sure that you're as efficient as possible. And if you check this status bar, you can see that I'm at 90% production boost right now. And, you're able to get there by maxing out all of your productivity rooms to, I believe right now the level cap is 10. They'll probably increase that at some point, but you get all those rooms up to level 10, and you make sure that all of your rooms are appointed with all the best mythics that you have available. You're going to get to this milestone. That's really all I have for you today. I hope that you're enjoying this series. As a reminder, the final portion of the guide is going to be all about the game economy. And I'm really looking forward to showing you a little bit of pack analysis and talking through some of the more important ways that you can earn gems and again, make your account as efficient as possible. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one.